Velotric Discover 2 might just be the most comfortable electric bike on the market. It's so comfortable that you can just about fall asleep while riding around on cruise control. If you haven't met me yet, my name is Jaron. I've been working in the bicycle industry for almost 10 years. And if you're thinking about buying a new electric bike and you're overwhelmed by all the choices, well, you've come to the right place. Hit the subscribe button as we post a new electric bike review on almost every Thursday. All that said, in this video, we're going to talk about some of the features and the benefits of the new Velotric Discover 2. I want to talk a little bit about who I think this bike is for. And if you stick around to the very end, you'll see me to start playing around with the new cruise control feature that Velotric's coming out on some of the new bikes they're offering these days. Velotric Discover 2. Before we talk about the bicycle, I want to talk about Velotric a little bit because you don't really hear about it too much on the internet. Velotric was started a few years ago by a guy named Adam Zhang. Previous to Velotric, Adam Zhang was one of the higher ups at this company called Lime. Lime was that company that basically was early on in the bike share industry. After the success that they had found at Lime, decided he wanted to get a little bit deeper into the bicycle industry. So he raised some money and started Velotric. Now, Velotric started as a company that believed that electric bikes should be sleek, well-designed, and also affordable. And so far, they've delivered on that mission. Now, how have they delivered on that mission? Well, Velotric took a little bit of a different path than a lot of the early e-bike companies. Many of those companies we saw selling a direct-to-consumer model, where Velotric very early on partnered with dealers, started asking dealers questions, and basically set their supply chain up as like an omni-platform supply chain. Now, that worked really well for the consumer because unlike some other direct-to-consumer bike companies out there, right away when you bought a Velotric, whether you bought it from their website or from a dealer, you were able to get the bike serviced and feel supported from your purchase. Now, that basically catapulted Velotric in the successes they're seeing today. Now, let's go back a little bit and talk about the D2. As you remember, the Velotric Discover or Discover 1 was the first option in the Discover lineup. And what's super important is that they're on to the D2. Now, many electric bike manufacturers have never really got to the second generation. And the second generation is where you see a lot of refinements come from a bike manufacturer. Velotric, I've got to give them credit. They came by the shop a lot. They surveyed their consumers and they asked a lot of questions about what we wanted to see next on their next generation bicycles. One of the big things that we talked about is like, if you're gonna compete with the other bike manufacturers, you've gotta have a torque sensor on the bicycle. They did it. If you're gonna compete with the bicycle manufacturers, there's gotta be even more elevated computer interface. They did it. And if you want to compete with the bike manufacturer, you've got to start to focus more on the overall ride quality of the bicycle. They did it. So the Discover 2 is a pretty exciting bicycle from Velotric because they listened to the consumers and the dealers and basically took all that feedback into an awesome second generation product. Now, a little bit about the details of the bicycle. It's got a 706 watt-hour battery. The battery is UL certified, which means it's safe either if you get it wet and ideally doesn't catch on fire. That's a big stamp of approval. And we're seeing only the real e-bike manufacturers be able to actually get this certification. If the bike you're looking at doesn't have UL certification on it, I would keep looking. Beyond that, the bicycle comes in at around 70 pounds in the style that I tested. I'm 5'10", and so I rode a regular in the test. Velotric website basically says the regular fits someone from like 5'3" to 5'11", and then the large is good for someone who's like 5'7", 5'8" to 6'5". I'm 5'10", I feel really, really comfortable on the regular bike. To me, the large actually feels a little bit big. So just double check what size fits you best. Ideally ride one of each size before you make the purchase, especially if you're in that middle ground from like 5'7" to 5'11". You're gonna wanna ride a couple bikes to make sure you find the bike that fits you best. Comfort. I think this is like the crown jewel of this bicycle. This is what they're putting all their marketing around, and it's for basically a few reasons. First thing they did is nice big tires on the front and rear, right? We don't need super small, low volume tires on electric bikes because we've got a little bit of God's invisible hand pushing us along, right? It doesn't need to be the most efficient thing. What's more important is the ride feel that we get from a larger tire. It's a more comfortable ride feel. In addition to the 2.3, I believe, 2.3 inch tires, this bicycle also has 80 millimeters of suspension on the front fork. Now, that suspension is also locked out if you want to have a little bit of a more efficient ride on a flat road, but me personally, I never locked it out. 80 mil is enough where it doesn't really affect you that much. It's just a little bit of squish to help smooth out the chatter on the road. Now, a few other things that Velotric did for comfort. They put on an adjustable stem on here, which a lot of e-bike manufacturers are doing these days. It's not too challenging to adjust it. You need, I believe I did it with a 4 mil and a 5 mil. You just loosen up the two bolts on the side of the stem, and then you loosen up the bolt underneath the stem. That allows you to tilt the handlebar up and down to the position that you like. One thing that's important to note is once you adjust the handlebar or the stem into the position that you like, you want to snug that down, make sure everything is torqued correctly. Then you want to go ahead and loosen up the bolts on the front of the stem. because you want to basically rotate the handlebar so that your arm position is in the right position after you've adjusted the stem. What do I mean by that? Well, if I have a stem that's like this and I rotate the stem back like that and I just tighten it down and leave it like that, my brakes are going to be sitting up like this, which means in a riding position, my wrists are going to be like this, right? So if I rotate the stem back like so, what I want to then do is make sure I rotate the handlebars forward a little bit. Because again, we want more of a straight position between our arm and our hand. That's gonna help us be more comfortable out on the road. So what did we talk about? We talked about tires, front suspension, we talked about the adjustable stem, a couple more things that really go a long way into the Velotric being a comfortable bike. Now, number one is the seat. The Velotric has what they're calling a 220 millimeter wide seat. I measured it, they weren't lying. It's quite a big seat as far as the bicycle industry is concerned. Now, there's two ways to sit on a bicycle seat. If I'm on a road bike and I'm in a forward, more aerodynamic position like this and I'm holding onto drop bars essentially, if you can see that my hips basically rotate forward. When my hips, my upper body and my hips rotate forward like that, my body is supported more by the sit bones underneath my butt. When I take my body and I rotate myself up into a riding position like this, Velotric is really priding themselves on a 90-degree riding position on this bicycle, which basically means torso is completely perpendicular to the ground, which is true. They've done it in that position because there's more pressure through gravity, right? Through my spine, directly through the seat. The wider the seat, generally the better. Now, if I was gonna go ride this bicycle for 95 miles at a clip, that wide seat starts to cause some irritation under my butt. But because the bike is made to ride a few hours at a time, that really upright riding position coupled with that 220 millimeter wide seat is a perfect match. One more thing to mention about comfort that I think is super important that, again, Velotric listen to the consumers and the dealers on, is that it's only a 15-inch step through at the lowest part of the frame. So a lot of bike manufacturers say, oh yeah, we made a step through frame. And I look at the bike and I'm like, you still gotta lift your leg up like 26 inches to get through the top tube. Not this bike. Again, I measured it. It's exactly 15 inches, which is what Velotric says on their website. So if you can get your foot essentially a foot and a couple inches off the ground, you'll be able to step through that frame, comfortably get on and off that bicycle safely. If you want to compete with the likes of Specialized and Trek and the other big boys out there, you've got to elevate your computer interface to the next level. We push Velotric really hard on this. No shocker, they did it. Bike comes fully equipped with a 3.5-inch color screen. Now, some manufacturers, generally the ones that started as traditional bicycle companies, are doing more and more to trim down the computer and hide it into the bicycle, where Velotric, because they started directly as an electric bike manufacturing company, they're not afraid of the computer screen. They want to make it as clear and as easy to read for their consumer, and I think they've done it just about better than anyone in the industry. So, how does the computer work? There's a few highlights of the computer that I think are important and worth talking about. On most electric bikes, there's generally like 3 to 4 settings. It's like the bike's powered on, but it's either like off, eco, sport, and turbo or something. You know, they all have different variations of that. If you look at the Velotric, on the left side of the screen, there's 4 options: off, eco, sport, and turbo, or off, eco, sport, and boost. I forget. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, there's essentially 5 numbers: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I like to think of it like a front derailleur and a rear derailleur. So if I am using basically the up and down arrows, that controls the number on the right-hand side, my rear derailleur or small adjustments. And if I press a little button on the front of the computer interface, that operates off, low, or eco, sport, and boost mode. That's like my front derailleur. So if I want it on my highest setting, I've got to have it on boost in 5. And if I want to have it on my lowest motor setting, I've got to have it on eco in 1. Is that too much adjustability? Well, it's interesting. I think the consumer wanted more control over the power settings of their bicycle, so Velotric gave it to them in this package. But I do think down the road, we'll see it get trimmed back down to like 2 or 3 power settings with some adjustability in a computer face, just to keep it a little bit more simple. Now, like most of the other bike manufacturers on the market, right underneath the remote, there's a small USB-C port. If you're someone who runs your computer on the handlebar of your bicycle, if you just plug it into that USB-C port, it'll charge your phone while you're riding. And that is the basics of the computer interface for the Velotric bicycle. Chapter 4, sensor swap. This is the biggest thing that I think Velotric did on this bicycle, and they did it differently than everybody else so far. Again, when we were chatting with Velotric, we said it's so important that you need to have torque sensor as an option on the bike. Now, Velotric did something a little bit differently here and something that we've never seen before. They gave the consumer both options, both cadence sensor and torque sensor. I gotta say, it's pretty impressive as an idea because it allowed them to sell the bike to a broader range of the marketplace and allow both those consumers to be very happy. Let me talk about the differences really quick. A cadence sensor essentially is a sensor on the bicycle that offers you static power. No matter how hard or how fast I pedal the cranks around, it's just gonna give me the power that's correlated to the setting that I have the bicycle on. Whereas a torque sensor is a dynamic set of power delivery. And what that basically means is the harder you pedal, the more power the bicycle gives you, regardless of what power setting you're in. For us as bike riders at our core, torque sensor is our preferred choice to go because it has true bike feel. You can't really tell you're on an electric bike, especially on this D2 because the power delivery is really smooth. Now, most of the time, people who prefer the cadence sensor wanna get out, just turn their feet over a little bit on the pedals and have a nice steady push of power supplied to them. Whereas people who prefer the torque sensor are generally people who want to get out, get more exercise, and have a little bit more of an active feel to their bicycle. Is one necessarily better than the other? No, but I think Velotric basically outsmarted everyone and offered the sensor swap in the bicycle, which allows the consumer to basically adjust in the app if they want to be on torque sensor or cadence sensor mode, albeit appealing to more and more people. Okay, so let's talk cruise control because it's kind of an interesting topic in the bike industry right now. The big thing that everyone's talking about is like, is it safe? Well, it's a great question. I'm not gonna be the one who says it's either safe or not safe, but I will say this. My guess is, 50 years ago when the auto industry came out with cruise control, everyone probably thought it was gonna be the most dangerous thing in the world. And guess what? Now we all drive with cruise control all the time. Do I think cruise control on a bike is something that's applicable everywhere on your ride? No, not necessarily. But if you're maybe cruising along and having a chat with a friend and you want to just keep going at the same pace, cruise control might be a good option for you. If you're riding your bicycle to work and you're in some part of your ride where you want to just take a break, but you want to keep going at 20 miles an hour and maybe don't want to have to hold the throttle all the time, cruise control might be a great option for you. Now, one thing that's really important to note, and it's just like a car works, is that if I'm riding along on cruise control, as soon as I press the brakes, cruise control turns off. So to me, it feels pretty safe as long as you're like actively riding your bicycle, right? It's just like autopilot on a Tesla. If I'm riding my Tesla in autopilot and I'm just like basically taking a nap, probably a little bit dangerous. But if I'm actively engaged and I'm looking at the front dashboard, at the end of the day, it's probably safer than me like texting while driving, right? So cruise control is a pretty interesting feature. I thought it was a lot of fun to try out. They've made it very easy and basically integrated it really nicely into the bicycle. And so it'll be interesting to see how cruise control on bicycles plays out over time. I think in the commuter bicycle space, we'll probably see it get more and more refined as the year goes on, and it'll probably be here to stay. But who am I? Cruise control on a bicycle. This is the thing that everybody's asking about the bike shop. When are we gonna use it? I'm not exactly sure yet, but it'll be interesting to find out. How does it work? Here's what you do. You get riding along, you've gotta be pedaling, and then you hold down the button on the bottom of your remote for about 3 seconds. After that, boom, cruise control is initiated. Now, my computer says I'm going 17 miles an hour. It's just gonna keep cruising along at 17 miles an hour. No throttle, no pedaling, no problem. To me, so far, I think it's a great little feature. We'll see how it takes in the real world. Who is this bike for? This is my favorite part of the videos. I think that the easiest way to answer this question is that this bike is for someone who's already purchased a Discover 1, enjoyed the bicycle, and wants a little bit more refined option. That's the person I'll say would guaranteed have a good time in the Velotric D2. Beyond that, if I was gonna cast a little bit wider of a net of who's this bike is a good fit for, I would say somebody who prioritizes comfort on their ride, right? Someone who really enjoys riding in an upright position, somebody who wants a lot of comfort out of a saddle, wants to be able to maneuver the handlebars and the stem around to be able to keep their arms at a nice straight riding position to optimize comfort in their arms, and essentially wants to take part in some of the bells and whistles that make riding a little bit of a more comfortable experience, right? It's got the big tire for comfort. We've got a front suspension for comfort. We've got a nice big saddle for comfort. This bike is really meant for someone more of a recreational consumer who's gonna be going out, riding their bicycle a couple hours at a time, maybe with a partner out to the coffee shop, even sometimes to the grocery store to grab a couple of small things to put either on the rack in the back or in a backpack. It's a great little supplement for a car on shorter trips through town. You can do it comfortably and with pretty little ease as the bicycle has quite a powerful motor on it. Now, I also want to talk about who the bicycle is not for, right? It's not for somebody who wants to go bang around on trails in their local mountain bike trail, There's better options for that. Velotric Nomad 2, I just did a review on that. That's pretty capable off-road. To bring it all home, the Velotric D2 is essentially made for that consumer that's prioritizing comfort, doesn't necessarily need the lightest, sportiest bike on the market, just a nice, high-quality electric bike on the market that they can feel supported on by either a dealer or the brand itself, someone who prioritizes quality, and at the end of the day, prioritizes value, right? That's really where Velotric seems to be head and shoulders above everyone else in the industry, is what they can provide at that price point. So Velotric Discover 2, 2 thumbs up from us. We're really excited about this bicycle. I think it's a great option for someone looking to buy a bicycle under $2,000. Tariffs may change that, but for now it's $19.99. If you like this kind of content, hit the subscribe button. We post a new electric bike review every single Thursday. And like I always say, run up for distance, run up for time. Thanks for watching.